It is our pleasure to be joined by one of the hardest working men in all of sports media. You got to check out his podcast, Cube Show, radio show, Mac and Cube on WJOX 945 there in Bama. Dude, you are ESPN, SEC Network. You're everywhere. Megacast on the playoff game. Look at you go, Cole Cubelic. Let's go, man. What's up?
We're trying. Doing great. How are you guys?
Can't complain. It's been a good playoff so far, man. I feel like it was the four best teams, maybe not best, evenly matched, two really good semifinals, and left us with a good championship game.
No, I think we get the real contrast of style game here for the national championship with a team in Washington that can throw the ball around, that has just weapons everywhere. A lot of fun to watch, big time quarterback and multiple NFL receivers. It's not as good defensively. And then Michigan, a team super stingy on defense, going to match the physicality of just about anybody they play, and a little more conservative offensively. But one of the things that I thought Michigan did really well against Alabama was find that creativity on offense. And it was one of my complaints going in. So one of the main reasons I picked Alabama to win that game was that the things that had given the Alabama defense issues were creativity. So motions, formations, RPOs, fakes. And Michigan found some more of those. And they had, I think, all season based on what I've watched. So interested to see what Sherrone Moore feels like they need to do in this game against Washington. Can they just go right at them? Can they be a little more vanilla and just kind of run what they've run all year? Or do they need to stay as creative as they were against Alabama?
Do you think, looking at that really good Michigan defense against Michael Penix in the Washington offense, I think that's where the game's going to be decided. Do you think Michigan can limit Penix and that elite wide receiver core, that passing attack?
I think they can limit them, but what is limiting this group? Is it 28 points, 24 points, 31 points? I mean, I almost feel like Washington can get 21-24 by default, and Michigan have a pretty good day. I mean, you get Rome Odunze, one-on-one 2 times, that could be 2 big touchdowns, easy. You get, Penix gets a scramble drill, hits Westover over the middle of the field, that could be another touchdown, no problem. So I think they can slow them down to an extent, Gabe, but there are too many weapons on this Washington offense. And we don't know what the status of Dylan Johnson is going to be. I think that could be a mammoth issue if he's not able to go, because he's really been the hammer for that team down the stretch. He's added a little more physicality than what they've had. And, he's been exceptional with what they've asked him to do the last 4 or 5 games of the season. And I just don't know if there's anything you can focus on and take away, because Jack Westover can hurt you at tight end. You have multiple receivers that can hurt you on different sides of the ball. Penix, and I asked Ryan Grove about it after the game. I was like, where are these quarterback runs been? You've been saving those up? And he kind of laughed and he said, we've had them for a while, but once they started taking away some of our gap scheme stuff on the outside, I started calling him a little bit more, and we knew he had the capability to do it. And he said it just kind of presented itself in this game. So now you have that you have to defend as well. And not to mention, Grubb is going to formation you, motion you, shift, trade. He gives you everything, literally all of it. Then they can go tempo, they can go a little bit faster. So they really do make you defend everything. And I wonder, even as good as that Michigan defense is, how much of it, what are the things they can focus on and try to eliminate that would really slow that offense down? I just think that they are too versatile to be able to completely shut that group down.
So does that leave you thinking that maybe Michigan use their advantage on the line of scrimmage, try and play keep away as much as they can?
I would. I think you will not see Michigan be as aggressive up front, Teddy. I don't know why they would show as much, do as much at the line of scrimmage against this group. Let's just be honest. This is a much more dangerous group out wide than what Alabama brings to the table. So I think you can be aggressive. You could show 5-6 down at a time and generate your simulated pressures that way, or just overload and bring guys as they did a couple of times against Alabama. With this group, I think you probably need more assistance on the back end. And you weren't really worried about Alabama receivers, tight ends, and a lot of one-on-ones, just creating explosive plays. This group will do that. So I would imagine that the Michigan front tries to play a little more straight up, maybe even tries to play lighter in the box early on and try to take away some of the stuff on the perimeter. I mean, Penix has over 2,200 yards outside the numbers this year. So he's going to make that – he's going to widen you out. He's going to put your safeties are going to have to play deep and back. Does that mean nickel outside linebackers are playing a little bit closer to the sideline? Do you widen your ends a little bit? I mean, they can change the way you defend them in a lot of ways. I would think that they want those numbers to help more on the back end than they do up front, and then they can alter that if they need. The other part about it is when I watch the Alabama offense, a lot of confusion with pass pro. Now there are a couple just straight wins by Michigan defenders. I won't say that there weren't, but a lot of that was caused by confusion and guys turned loose, and you're bringing it back across the line of scrimmage to take on a linebacker that just has a 6-yard head start. It's not a favorable matchup for the back. You have a guard that busts an assignment. You have slide protection that falls apart time and time again. I don't think you'll get that same kind of confusion from Washington. They're not as reliant on quick and slide protection and play action protection as Alabama is. They can take what I reference as professional pass sets and utilize professional protection where they'll just man it up and they'll take 5 in front of them and the 5 of them will try to block them. Now, it doesn't mean that they can't win some of those matchups. I just don't think that they're going to get as much based on confusion as what they did against Alabama. So, yeah, I think it's trying to maintain possession and then, try to force Washington to work their way down the field. Don't give up those big plays over the top that they've had in just about every game they've played in.
You're an O-line guy. Well, when you look at Washington's group and you look at Michigan's group, who do you think has the better O-line in the national championship game?
I still think it's Washington because they're a little more versatile. Michigan's still a little bit dinged up. They did a great job on first down in this game, something they had to do. And that was to keep J.J. McCarthy out of harm's way. They also utilized tight ends overloads to be able to take away Chris Braswell, Dallas Turner off the edge, just teeing off because they weren't going to have success against that. They've had a tackle problem for about a month. Well, they avoided the situations in which that can be most detrimental in that game. So I love the versatility of what this Washington group brings, whether it's out in space, pass protection, working together as a unit. Not to say that this Michigan group is not good. They are. But I think they win with more just brute force physicality. They do have a good understanding of how to operate as one, but they've had a lot of injuries. A lot of guys had to move around. I mean, Zach Zinner was their best player. He's obviously going to be gone, but they're a solid group. And I'll be interested to see how Washington plays it defensively too, because they're not the best run fit team. But I do think when they sort of move guys around and not sit stationary, that they can cause some problems. I mean, Braylon Trice was unblockable against Texas. He looked unbelievable. So, but I would still lean Washington just based on what they can do individually in pass pro, what they can do in the run game, how they get out in space, how they finish. They've been, I think, the best team in the nation, the best group in the nation to watch for a longer period of time this year.
No, you got a couple of good quarterbacks. McCarthy, the styles are totally different with what they do offensively. I think there's a big advantage to Washington and to Penix, but I don't even know. Do you think Penix gets enough credit for how good he is? I mean, I know everyone recognizes it, but he's incredible. And I don't know. I feel like for a guy that's got the record he does over the last 2 years, he's found himself in a national championship game. I don't know. For whatever reason, I feel like he doesn't get celebrated like some other quarterbacks that have been in this position.
He hasn't really been that media darling. And I think there's zero doubt in my mind that based on his accuracy, how he manages things, that he definitely doesn't get enough credit. The other part of Teddy is he's twice the human as he is a football player. And a lot of that, when I say that, has to do with the teammate that he is also, to his teammates, to the guys around him. They love him. And I had him in the Alamo Bowl last year, and I'm sitting up at the luncheon, sitting up on the stage with Kalen DeBoer, and Kalen's telling me just how mad all the other players on the team were that he wasn't going to New York for the Heisman, and that they took that personal. But like not Mike, but the rest of the guys took it personal. So there's just it's a different room when you're talking about that offense and how they work with each other and how they care about each other. but his accuracy is off the charts. And he attempts throws and completes a lot of them that most guys would never even consider letting loose. There's just no way. And like I said, outside the numbers, down the field, quick throws, arm angles, getting the ball out in a hurry. It was really cool doing the game, the megacast with Colt McCoy, who obviously played quarterback at a high level and had never seen him in person. And just to hear him consistently, man, I can't believe how quick that ball comes out. I can't believe how effortless his throws down the field look. He just flips his wrist and it's 50 yards downfield. And the accuracy, to hear a guy that has that level of quarterback acumen sort of gush over the things that he was doing in that game. And let's be real, he's done it most of the year. That was a great game. He did some amazing things, but he's done amazing things all year. He did amazing things last year. So I don't know if it's West Coast, if it's just Washington, if it's guys not paying enough attention, whatever it is, there's no way he gets enough credit. He definitely deserves more.
Yeah, I think he's been phenomenal. And I think I'm not sure how many people have watched many Washington games this year, but I think a lot of people saw him maybe for the first time in the semifinal and went, whoa,
yeah,
look at this guy. Now, Colt, every time I talk to you about a game you're going to call, you always have matchups, right? Key matchups that you're looking at. When you look at the national title game, what are some of the key matchups that you think can really decide who walks out of there as the national champion?
I think it's the interior of both defensive lines, because if you watch what happened to Washington last week, and I think if there is a portion of that O-line that's a little bit gettable, it's inside, mainly right guard and center, because they're a little bit lighter and they're just not as physical and physically imposing as maybe left guard, left tackle are. And Byron Murphy got him a few times, but Byron Murphy's going to be a good pro for a long time too. I mean, it's not like this was, some guy that is done playing football and he just happened to have a great game. He's going to have a great NFL career. And then on the flip side of that, just this Michigan front has been really good, and they're really good inside. So going back to what we said earlier, I think there's a possibility that those guys could win some one-on-ones inside and be a problem. Now, Washington negates that. It's a huge advantage to what they want to do offensively. And then when you flip the ball around, there's some Michigan offense they're still going to try to run the ball. Now, they might do it by overloading one side. They might have an extra tackle in the game. They might have 3 tight ends in the game. As they did against Alabama, you may add a jet motion or 2 here and there. There could be more designed quarterback runs, which I thought were going to be big last week against Bama. They could have some of those, add a gap in a blocker. It's fine. But I think up front, the Washington defensive line, not very deep, specifically inside. How does that group hold up? Does Michigan then figure out that they can run the ball between the tackles and have success, which is obviously going to make life a lot different for a lot of people. So I really do think that when you look in between the tackles, both of those defensive lines there are going to be key in this game. You just go back to just what they're capable of doing and then what they've done. It's been a little up and down for both groups, and then who they're going up against, that they've offset it well at times. So if Washington handles that group, and I mean, even when Penix couldn't step up and make throws or had to step left or right last week, he was still completing passes. It was one of the things Acho said on our broadcast. He goes, you got to get him off his spot. You got to get him off his spot. And I kind of countered that with, I was like, but they've been getting him off of his spot, and he finds a new spot, and then he's completing the pass. So
he's just changing the spot. He's just changing.
Yeah, I mean, Teddy obviously did in college, but you and I played defense at some point in our lives. Like, we know how frustrating that is to win, get to the backfield, feel like you've got everything made, and you're going to make this huge play, and then 20 yards down the field, there's a completion because you whiffed and the guy makes a throw. So, I think they have to. I think you have to affect Penix in different ways. Try to bat ball downs, like Acho said. Try to make him move, make him uncomfortable, get hits on him. And I think they have a very good chance for more of that coming inside than they do outside, because both tackles are really good for Washington. And then he likes to stay in the pocket. He doesn't like to move. His completion percentage goes down to like 41 when he's outside the pocket. So he likes to stay at home and step up and deliver throws that way. So I really do think the interior of both these defensive lines are probably going to have a large say in who wins this football game.
Now, maybe this matters, maybe it doesn't, but, over the last, several years, it's been a rotation of kind of the same programs, right, in the national title game. But now we've got two staffs, two teams full of rosters that haven't been here, and it's different, right? There's a lot going on surrounding the game. The preparation is different. There can be, teams can get antsy early on, and maybe guys try and go above what they need to do to try and make a special play. Is there an edge one way or the other, in your opinion, just like one team able to handle the environment and the situation better?
Well, I don't know if there would be an edge one direction or the other, Teddy, but I do think they both have the ability to handle it in different ways. Number one, this Washington team is just that they're an older team. They're a veteran team. They're a mature football team. And I mean, you guys played, this. There are teams that seem to have it. And oftentimes we don't really know what it is. Sometimes you go 2010 Auburn, like Cam Newton was it. But you didn't have to say like, oh, there's this magic that happens or whatever. Like they just had a guy that could either run the ball, throw the ball, and he caught a touchdown against Kentucky. Like whatever has to happen, he'll go do it. But there are certain teams that just, TCU last year was kind of one of those teams for a large majority of the season. Some people say Washington is that team this year because of the one-score games. Like I didn't bang on TCU last year because they trailed in the fourth quarter, 5 or 7 times, and people got mad at them. Like you guys know, like I do, it's hard as hell to be down in the fourth quarter and then win a game. It's hard to be up 3 or up 7 in the fourth quarter and win a game because you pretty much have to play perfect football at that point. You make big mistakes and the team obviously is competitive or good enough to be in the game, they're usually going to take advantage of that. So I think with Washington, I asked Kalen about it too in New Orleans. I said, it seems like there's an it factor with this team, but if you were to try to put your finger on it, what would you say it is with this group? And he said confidence. And he said, we harp on it in the offseason. We talk about it during the season. We talk about it at practice. We give guys reasons to be confident in what we are doing. And it is a focal point 365 days a year. He said, so I truly believe when the lights are shining the brightest, that's why our kids play their best, because they're confident in each other and they're confident in what we do and what we're doing. On the Michigan side of that, they've had every distraction possible this year. I mean, all of them, whether it's key player injuries, whether it is, people banging on their strength of schedule, quarterback not having to go out and win games with his arm, head coach getting suspended, the sign stealing deal. Like, no one's ever, even if they go win this thing Monday night, no one's going to give them credit for winning it because they're still going to point back to Connor Stallions and that whole thing and whatever. But they've handled so much other BS that I find it very difficult to think that this is not a mentally tough football team. They have to be where they are right now. So, and I think you would probably say Michigan has a little bit of an advantage having at least been in the playoff the last 2 years. So they've been on a similar stage and have an understanding of just what the pressure is like and going to be like than maybe what Washington does. But I think both these teams mentally, emotionally, their makeup is probably going to be just fine in this game.
All right. How do you see it going? Who you got?
I think if you went just on film, just on scheme, just on players, you'd probably take Michigan in this game. I think that would probably be the safer bet, just because of what they do, how they can be problematic, and then what you need to be able to counter that or stop that. But I'll go back to it again, and I said it in the Pac-12 championship game when they were a double-digit dog. I didn't understand it. I didn't see how or why. And I said, I've gone against them all year. I picked them to go to the playoff. I'm not going to go against them now. And then, in this last game against Texas, I know it's not super analytical and it's not really what I get paid for, but I just think that there's something about this team. And again, I don't get mad at a team for winning 8 straight one-score games. That's hard as hell to do. And they've done that. The distribution of the football to playmakers and how they can alter that. They don't have a great defense top to bottom, but I do think they have guys that are good enough to step up and make plays when need be. And I do think they're bigger and a little more physical up front than they get credit for. which is why they might not have as much of a problem against this Michigan offensive line and group of tight ends and running backs. So I'm just not going to go against Washington. I think Penix has got something special going. I think Grubb and Kalen both kind of are just in a rhythm right now, have a really good understanding of how to manage things, get things done. I don't think if they don't muff that punt, I think it was, what was it, early second quarter, whatever it was. Like, I think they walk away from Texas in that game. I think they blow them out. That gave Texas life. That let them hang in. That gave them some confidence going into the half. But I think this offense is too high powered. I think the coaching staffs are too good. Too many veteran players. I'm going to go Washington, and I think it could be a lower scoring game than some people believe. But that'd probably be okay for Washington because, like I said, I think they probably think by default they can get 3 or 4 touchdowns in this game.
Yeah. Well, if Michigan wins, does Ohio State assassinate Jim Harbaugh in the offseason?
I don't think they're going to have to because he's going to go to the NFL.
He's gone. Yeah.
So they're going to have to worry about it unless he goes to coach, the Steelers or the Bengals, and then all the Cleveland fans will be upset. So I don't think
so?
I think this will be.
If he wins it, he's gone.
I think he's gone no matter what, Teddy. I think this is his. I think this will be the last game that he coaches in college, not just at Michigan. That's my opinion, but you don't have people coming at you the way that he has and have to deal with the things that he has and are going to have the opportunity in front of you to go coach in the NFL like he's going to and stick around. I don't think that happens. So I think he's done. This will be his last game at Michigan either way.
Interesting. All right, one more and we'll let you get out of here, man. You were on the call for ESPN for the Alamo Bowl. You got to see OU in person. I'm just curious, what were your main takeaways from what you saw from Venables and from the players that on OU's team?
I'll start with Venables because I haven't spent much time with him personally, just to be honest with you. And he gave us probably 45, 50 minutes. He was very gracious with his time, and hearing him talk about the program collectively, in its totality, top to bottom, managing everything, I came away really impressed with him and just sort of his feel for how things need to get and stay where they need to be. And they've come a long way in just 2 seasons. It's hard to really say the product on the field because you got guys that are in the portal that are playing. You have guys that have left to go prepare for the NFL, and because they're in the portal. So that part was a little bit difficult to judge, specifically on offense, because, yes, you have a quarterback that I'll say, like, Jackson's got all the ability in the world. You can see it. You can just see as the game went on, and Venables kind of said this at halftime, like, because I asked him, I was like, are we watching this kid grow up in front of our eyes? And he said, well, you can absolutely see his confidence growing. Like, you can see him being more comfortable, getting to a little better of a rhythm. And just the way that he started to set up, how quickly he would deliver the football. I mean, he threw a couple picks. Like, it's going to happen. He's young. And, he's obviously not afraid to go out there and try to do things, which is what you want from your quarterback. So I think at that position, they're going to be fine. Little concerned about the offensive line, just with so many guys out and so many guys that are not going to be back. You got to have depth at that position. I mean, that, Gabe, like I do. So what's the first group going to look like, but what's the next group going to look like if first group guy's banged up or doesn't do what he needs to do, anything like that. So that was a little concerning. But I love how aggressive the defense is. I love how they did some different things to be able to find pressure. They gave Fafita some issues, and that has happened a lot this year. And I know they didn't have Jordan Morgan at left tackle, but that's still a pretty good offensive line, and they were able to consistently get in the backfield, negate the run, and then get to the quarterback some. It just had they had the explosive plays. I mean, T-Mac and those guys are – people don't realize it and don't know it, but that Arizona team is a really good football team and probably one of the coolest teams to even talk about this entire season. So, like, I talk about Washington and what they have going on. Like, that Arizona locker room's got something – like, out of this world going on. It's unbelievable just how tight-knit they are, close they are, like, just the care they have for one another. It's wild. But I love what I saw at quarterback. Skill position I don't think is going to be an issue. up front on defense, the ability to wreak havoc, I think is something that you saw flashes of that I feel like are real positive. And you got some of your best players coming back on that side of the ball. I mean, you got an edge rusher that's going to, I think, blossom into being a really good player, a safety that's going to be awesome, and a linebacker that's going to be one of the best in the SEC next year. So there's a lot of the foundational aspect of what Oklahoma's going to have going into next year that I think fans should feel pretty good about. And how about the fact that I mean, we lose our offensive coordinator, we just like fall into Seth Luttrell. I mean, that's pretty damn impressive right there. I mean, just, hey, bring in former head coach, great play caller, like just sitting there waiting in the wings. Like, that's a pretty good place to be. Like, somebody's living right when that happens to you.
Cole, you're the man. You're the hardest working guy in the business, dude, and you do a fantastic job. I've been tuning into Cube Show. You having fun with it? It's been great, man.
It has been fun. You're
going to overtake Pate in no time. Your numbers, you're going to overtake viewership numbers. You're going to skyrocket past them. It's just a matter of time.
Oh yeah, I think our national champion, our college football playoff preview did like 800 views. We are on our way to just smashing his 180,000 views per show that he does. So yeah, we'll get there. One decade or 7 from now, we'll figure it out. So yeah, we're trying. We're working on it. But hey, listen. The reason we started the show is on Sundays, watch the film of all the SEC teams and then talk about what happened. And then we just kind of BS our way through the offseason. But for Oklahoma fans, and I'm just going to be honest with you, it probably is not going to be able to stay on Monday next year or Sunday next year, because it's adding 2 more games every week is going to be damn near impossible. But that's what we're going to do. We're going to go through the games and go through the film and let you know what we saw each and every week. And I don't feel like anybody else is doing it that way. So it's one thing Pate can't say he can do. He ain't grinding on the tape, I can tell you that.
No, sir. No, sir. No. That's why you're my favorite. Cole, hey man, appreciate the time. It's always fun catching up, and should be a fun national title game.
Absolutely. Appreciate you guys having me.